I created, and I posted it on Facebook, and someone, I can't remember her name, but she introduced me to Dana Obar, which when he saw this affidavit, he was like, holy crap, man, that's awesome. You created that? I'm like, yes. So um, somehow they um, suggested that I contact Christopher Hallett when he was still alive, you know. And I talked to Christopher about coming on Kirk's Law Corner and featuring this document and explaining, you know, what the document means and how to actually turn it into a financial instrument. So there's the notarized um, copy of that original affidavit that I used, okay? And here's the same thing, you know. So, and here's an official instrument. This is the original version, the first um, affidavit that I created was the night before going to court. And I went in and had them record this on the face of the record at the county recorder's office. There's an instrument number up here and all that stuff, which makes this an official instrument of commerce. And that's what you want, you know. But I made that one on the way to court, and when I went into the county recorder's office and asked them to record it, the clerk's like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, so what you're saying is you don't know that you have to do this. So she went in there, talked to the supervisor, and she came out and recorded it. And they must have noticed I was on the docket that day because I had a 11 a.m. hearing, and I had to wait until the end of the day till the courtroom was empty because they didn't want anybody in that courtroom hearing what I had to say, you know. When I got up there, they asked me, you know, my side. I'm like, well, before we begin, this tribunal must certify my right to subrogation in writing. And the magistrate looked down at the paperwork like he was going to rule from the paperwork, and he looks up and goes, case dismissed, you know, and the plaintiff and I both were like, what? Because I came in there ready to fight, you know. And the magistrate said, Mr. Faulkner, did you hear what I said? Case dismissed. Because they didn't want me to say another word. You know? They don't want you to know in any of this stuff. But, you know, like I said before, Kirk's Law Corner, they had invited me on their show, and the very first time I looked at their, I'm like, you know, I better look and see what the format is on Kirk's Law Corner, and when I did, they had David Lester Straight, and David Jose, and John Gentry on there. And I'm like, holy shit, I just challenged them to a 1 hour debate on Facebook, live on Facebook, to see which of any of us actually knew what we were talking about when it comes to the law, because I had caught David Lester Straight plagiarizing my intellectual property, and I had just done there was a case that David Jose did he charged this lady like $800 in Arizona to help her in a custody battle, and she ended up losing her kids to Children's Services, and I helped her get those back. I got her kids back for her, and I charged her nothing. So Anyways, this is the instruments that I developed during that time, and they wanted to feature me on, you know, Kirk's Law Corner, but after I started tearing them down on how fake their page was, and all the, what happened is Christopher Hallett had filed an emoluments claim for Donald Trump that got a minimal amount of success, and they were milking that to his death. And you know, in the audience there was Timothy Charles Holmes, and him and I kind of befriended each other for a little bit, and then he's turned into a total whack job. And all these guys, Kirk Pendergrass and Timothy Holmes and David Lester Straight, all started pretending to be these entities that don't even exist. They're the pedophile task force. Melania's pedophile task force is for Native Americans only. That's an important component that they left out of their little spiel. There's no such thing as the pedophile task force outside of that parameter, period. And I know that Robert Horton, Sergeant Robert Lee Horton, went on Timothy Holmes's page there and said that he called the Judge Advocate General office, and they said there was a pedophile task force. Yeah, there is one, but it's for Native American children only. And you can look that up yourself. I've got nothing to hide. I've got nothing to gain by misleading you. Okay, so anyway, there's the documentation that some of you have recently requested. Back when I was promoting hashtag Tell5People, I had created a document I featured on my channel called the Affidavit of Standing Jurisdiction and Status. And I had caught David Lester Straight plagiarizing my intellectual property as his own. And I had a bunch of people approaching me and stuff about you know, promoting my legal success and my legal theories and my legal documents, official instruments that I created and stuff like that. And somebody referred me to Dana Obar and Chris Hallett and Kirk Pendergrass. And Kirk Pendergrass has a YouTube channel called Kirk's Law Corner. And they had invited me on to Kirk's Law Corner to talk about, you know, my my legal success and my affidavit and all that stuff. And I had just been on Facebook challenging David Lester Straight, David Jose, and John Gentry to a 1-hour open debate to see who in the hell knew what they were talking about when it come to the law. All three of them, I mean, David Lester Straight, he just ignored me and blocked me. And John Gentry did the same thing. And David Jose trashed me for an hour and then blocked me, you know. But I was talking to Chris Hallett. Chris Hallett had minimal success with one filing he did for Donald Trump. Chris had a business called E-Clause, and his business did some auditing for the government, and he wrote this little emoluments paper for Trump that got, had some success. But that was the only success any of these people had. Period. And they rode they rode that thing to its death. Okay, and then so I got on their channel and stuff to see, what their format was. And the first video I watched had were featuring David Lester Straight, and they had David Jose on there and John Gentry. And like I said, I'd already exposed and warned David Lester Straight about plagiarizing my property. Okay, and I had already confronted David Jose because he was promoting all this legal shit, how he knows the law and all that stuff. And he had I had just did a case for this lady who had paid him $800 to do some legal work for her in a custody case, and she lost her kids to the state, to Child Protective Services. And I did a pro bono case for her and got her kids back for her, okay? And so I just went through that shit with that bozo, and here he is on their show. And also, John Gentry had this petition going around, 50 states for 50 something. I can't remember what it was, but I had offered to ghostwrite his. He was going to take this petition on the floor of Congress and present this. This petition to Congress, and I said, "You listen. I'll ghostwrite that and get it grammatically correct and in proper form, so you'll get some attention there, And he shot me down and bad-mouthed me and blocked me on his channel and everything. And he went on the floor of Congress and got shot down. So, anyways, I went on to that episode and saw all that stuff, and I brought that out, and immediately they didn't want nothing to do with me. So I just I kept looking at their show and everything, and the audience that watches that show, they use that show as like a chat room, and they have this chat going on that has nothing to do with the video that's going on and everything, and Timothy Holmeseth was in that audience, and him and I kind of hooked up for a little bit, but Chris Hallett wrote this complaint against Hillary Clinton for murder, and he was found shot dead in his home, and they the media tagged it as the QAnon murder and swept it right under the rug, and that was the last you ever heard of it, okay? But then from those dusts, in the wake of Chris's death, Kirk Pendergrass, David Lester Straight, and Timothy Holmeseth assumed all these fictitious titles, they're on the pedophile task force and all this garbage, man, and you can go around to any place you see their garbage, and you'll see my comments tearing them down for what pieces of shit that they are. Because I'm the truth whisperer, man, and my object is to expose all the fraudsters. And those guys are all fraudsters. David Lester Straight, Timothy Holmeseth, John Gentry, David Jose, and man, the list gets so big from there. But unfortunately, Chris Hallett was murdered in the process, and they swept that under the rug, okay? And all these guys perpetrating to be all the things that Chris how it actually was afterwards. Just shows you how pathetic and smarmy maggots that people can be, you know. So there's my Tell 5 People extended version. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes along with that Tell 5 People hashtag. I use that so effectively. Matter of fact, I just, when I discovered that the court was just unlawfully garnishing my disability for 16 years for child support, I used that for about 3 years to just tear them all down, tear down the county commissioners and the Governor John Kasich, and the judge, Anthony Capizzi. I tore them down for 3 years. And when I came back to Dayton, Ohio, I went to the county commission meeting, and within 3 meetings, I got all of my money returned to me representing myself. I didn't even go to court. I used their television airtime to smash them to death. And they had no choice but to give me my money back because I was obliterating them. But see, everything that I do, they learn from and they adapt from. Okay, so they, for my affidavit of standing jurisdiction status, they adapt to stuff like that, And the county administrator, they changed the public speaking time from 15 minutes to 5 minutes because of me. And they violate the law. They're not allowed to remove that stuff. They're not allowed to. They're not allowed to do any of that stuff. They're not allowed to remove that from their social media files or anything. But they're not following the law. There is no law. They are the lawless. And you guys got to get that in your head, that these motherfuckers don't follow the law. That's why, it's so important that you understand that there is no Constitution. The Constitution was lost on February 21st, 1871, when the 41st Congress changed this from a republic to a corporation. Okay? They've replaced the Constitution with the United States Code. The Code, I've explained that to you before in several videos. You need to go look for that information. And I'm going to put you right on point. You got to get that through your head. There is no fucking Constitution. And anybody that pretends that there is one is lying to themselves and lying to you. There's not a single lawyer on this planet that doesn't know that what I'm telling you is the truth. And if they don't, they're ignorant. And if they say they don't, in a court of law, you can prove that they do, whether they don't or whether they do. Because the law says you can infer someone has knowledge of something due to their similar circumstances or their occupation. So there you go. You don't see any lawyers coming out as whistleblowers about the judiciary, do you? David Lester Straight had kind of fallen off my radar for a long time, and until I saw Timothy Holmes's channel on BitChute. He's got a couple of them. One's called the I can't remember, the High Command, and Timothy Holmes's, Timothy Charles Holmes's. Anyways, he was doing all this delusional bullshit about David Lester Straight, and that dude Timothy needs psychiatric evaluation because that dude is all over the place, nuts. But anyways, I got back on David Lester Straight, and I did a search for him, and I found he was doing these seminars. He's charging $324 per seminar to teach these people about getting their citizenship straight and all this stuff he knows nothing about. Okay, I'm not a pioneer of that genre, but I'm definitely a trailblazer. Who you can see if you go back through some of the videos I've done, you can see that I know what I'm talking about. He don't know what he's talking about. But anyways, I looked on there and he had this resume that was just, I mean, people are so gullible. I mean, he's like, he worked for a, um, um, an intelligence agency. He doesn't name. And then he was a sheriff's deputy. And then he was in the Secret Service. And then he was a colonel in the Texas Rangers. And all the while he's doing all this other stuff. He's on pedophile task force and doing all these seminars, and I mean, people are so fucking dumb that they can't see that he would have to be 200 years old to have a resume that long, okay? And then one of the things that he said that he was claiming on there is that he was on Ammon Bundy's defense team, and he's one of the people that got Ammon Bundy off of the Bundy Ranch standoff, you know. And I called Ammon Bundy's office, Bundy for governor, and I talked to Wendy, and I said, listen, this guy's claiming he was Ammon's on Ammon's defense team, and he's the one that got y'all off and all that stuff. She said, she put Ammon on the phone. He says, I've never heard of the guy. Okay, so I called David Lester Straight on his cell phone, which surprised the shit out of him. You know, and I could do that with anybody. I'm telling you, I got some shit. But anyways, I called him on his cell phone. He's like, who is this? I said, this is Don, the guy that I already warned you about plagiarizing my intellectual property. What the fuck do you want? I said, man, Emma Bundy says he don't even know you, you piece of shit. And he started cussing me out and all that stuff. Ended up hanging up on me. But anyway, the point is, and David Lester Straight and his wife just got arrested not too long ago for because they the stuff that they promote, like I said, they don't know what they're doing. Okay, they travel around with no tags and no driver's license and stuff, and they don't know what they're doing, because if they knew what they were doing, they would have gotten themselves a passport. Okay, when you get yourself a passport and you trade in your driver's license and your social security card and your birth certificate and all that shit, and you really get your when you become an American National Trustee, you have all these things. Okay, you have a passport, and you can drive without a license and all that shit when you have a passport. But Dave was telling these people license plates and stuff like that, telling them they could drive around, they didn't have to follow the law and all that bullshit. Well, fuck you, David Lever Straight. Yeah. Lester Straight, you piece of shit. David, not so straight. David straight to fucking jail is what you get if you follow that clown.